Go love your own enemies. Don't be loving mine. My enemies are the theocratic fascists. I don't love them. I want to destroy them.
Child made in the image of God. Oh no, you're not. You're a faggot. And you can't join your church and you can't go to heaven. This is disgraceful. It's inhuman.
Okay, so I have a few things I wanted to say, and I'm just going to throw them all out there into one video rather than make a whole bunch of little videos. First thing I wanted to discuss is this Trump apology, this very disingenuous Trump apology. Does he even know what he's apologizing for? Or is he just reading a script that whatever his writers have prepared for him? Look, you know, we need to do some damage control because you have no filters, and whatever pops into your head comes right out of your mouth, and a lot of it's really not very impressive. A lot of people are being turned off by you, and a lot of people are seeing that you're not very fit to hold office of president of this country. Okay, so let's put out this apology and try to disguise to the American people what a threat and a monster this person is. I have lost all respect for the GOP. It's bad enough they even gave him the nomination and put this country at such dire risk, but they continue to try to, it's like they're putting frosting on a turd. Here, if we put enough frosting on this turd, it'll look like a cupcake. It's still a turd. It is still going to cause America a great deal of harm, and how dare the GOP put their desire to win ahead of the welfare of this country. It's bad enough in 2008 when they were trying to put up a first time in history card to match the first African American to run for president card. They were like, okay, well, we have the first African American to run for president. How can we go against that? Let's put a woman as vice president here of our little whatever. Who cares if she's a bumbling idiot? Actually, I have changed a bit of my tune for Sarah Palin since I heard that she studied very hard once she got the nomination. She studied very hard to try to learn. So she really had an honest desire to give the best she could to this country. Trump does not study. Trump does not care. Trump is too arrogant to think that he has any faults whatsoever. And the fact that he has no knowledge, and the fact that he lies like most people breathe, while he criticizes Hillary for lying. I'm sorry, the man has no class, no character. He's a criminal. He has scammed small business owners to get to the top, and he's not even at the top. He's even lied about how much money he has. He's a phony. Anyway, so that's my thing about Trump. I have no respect for the GOP because they're continuing to try to get this, I'm sorry, he's just a monster, into office. And I guess they're counting on the idea that they'll be able to run the show. They'll be able to pull his strings once he's in office. I don't think that's going to happen. I think this man is a power egomaniac and a power monger. And once he has the presidency, he's going to turn into a tyrant. He admires tyrants. He praises them. He looks up to them. He wants to be one. Okay, so that's enough about him. The other thing I wanted to say is this whole politically correct thing. You don't see much of that at Trump rallies. In fact, political correctness flies right out the window at Trump rallies. And it's okay to throw people out who disagree with you. It's perfectly okay. But just criticizing Islam is not politically incorrect. And I'm sorry, this country does allow for freedom of speech. I was called a bigot yesterday for my post that I put up, my video, Muslims need to do the work, not expect others to. I was called a bigot for putting that video up. Well, I went to dictionary.com and I looked up the definition of bigot. I knew what it was basically, but I wanted to refresh my mind. It's a person who is utterly intolerant of any differing creed, belief, or opinion. So the guy who called me a bigot, who was an atheist, by the way, is also a bigot because he showed zero tolerance for my differing belief or opinion. So talk about the pot calling the kettle black. If I'm a bigot because I disagree with the double standards, the very blatant double standards put on women, and the fact that women are, oh, they don't have to, but they really do have to because it pleases their God, and just try to get one of them to take off their veil at the Department of Licensing. But they don't have to wear it. No, it's not that they're forced to. They can wear whatever they want to. Yeah, except that it pleases their God, and they're going to have a meltdown if you ask them to take it off. I forgot where I was going with this. Saying what I think about the kind of double standards that put women in these kind of outfits, but men are walking around completely westernized, and it's perfectly okay. Oh, but their shorts can't be any higher than their knees. Oh, such a cruel restriction for those poor men. I have a right to say what I think about that. I have a right to say, if I saw somebody walking down the street with a slave in chains, I have the right to say I disagree with that and I find it repulsive. That is my right to express an opinion about that. And I look at this in very much the same way. I see women in these costumes and it looks like slavery to me. It looks like these people have been manipulated and brainwashed into believing that this is how a proper woman should dress. And if she shows any skin at all, she is a wanton whore. She is a hussy. She is a lowly whatever streetwalker. She's just asking for it. Yeah, she's just asking for it. You know, those men are so out of control. They've never had to learn self-respect. And it's up to us women to keep the men in line by completely hiding ourselves and our identities from the world. Yes, and we need to ask the men for permission to leave the house. This is not a lie about Islam. This happens in some Islamic countries. Just like in some Islamic countries, women are not allowed to drive a car. Male doctors are not allowed to treat women in some Islamic countries. There's a whole list of weird things that I don't think are really very good for a society that I would rather not have here in America, and I'm going to say what I think about it. I feel like I have an opinion. I like my way of life. I like Western culture. I would rather not live in the Middle East. If I wanted to live in the Middle East, I would go to the Middle East. And I have a right to say that. And if you want to call me a bigot because I feel this way, go for it. But it just makes you a bigot by calling me a bigot. Yes, and also the whole thing, like I put up yesterday about Muslims need to do the work, not expect others to. If you go to Facebook and you check out HuffPost Religion, which is it really should be called HuffPost Islam, because it is a propaganda tool for Islam. They don't even try to hide the fact. 9 out of 10 posts that they put up, articles that they put up, has to do with Islam and how wonderful it is, and how we really need to try to get those people in Western societies to understand Islam. It's just really wonderful and warm and fuzzy and peaceful, and you people in the West, you just are so ignorant and misinformed, and you just don't understand. You just need to listen to us. These are the constant posts that you see under HuffPost Religion on Facebook. Oh, what it's like to be an American Muslim, da-da-da-da-da. I've never seen a single post where it talks about what it's like to be a woman or a man in Western society. What about the effort to help Muslims coming into this country understand the culture that they are pretending to want to embrace? What about getting them to understand the perspective of people who don't see things the way they do or believe the same things they do? Why not show a little effort to increase their awareness for the feelings and considerations of people around them. I don't think considerations was the right word, but it sounded okay. So I'll leave it. You know, I see very little effort on the part of American Muslims or Muslims in the UK, from what I have read, to understand the cultures that they are trying to fit into. They don't try to understand. They just get angry when we don't understand them, at least what they want us to understand about Islam. They want special privileges that nobody else gets to have. They don't try to adapt. They don't try to, integrate into our society. They want to live their society and their culture separate, but here in this country. And I just feel, again, that if you want to live in the Middle East, you should live in the Middle East. And if you want to wear clothes like you're in the middle of the desert, you should go to the desert to wear those clothes. This is not part of our culture. And I really don't want it here. I don't mind having Muslims here. I have several friends that are not walking around dressed like desert dwellers in my circle of friends. They just dress like Americans because that's what they are. And there are plenty of Muslim Americans who are Americans. They dress American. They have embraced the culture. But there are so many more that refuse to and get upset that you even would suggest it. But isn't that what immigrants are expected to do when they come into a new country? They're basically saying, I want to be you. I want to be American. But then they don't. They don't want to be American. They don't act like Americans. They don't dress like Americans. They expect special privileges, and they get angry. And now we're to the point where if you even say a word about it, you're a horrible person. You're a bigot. You're being politically incorrect. I don't think so. And it's not even what they wear. If I mentioned Japanese people yesterday, and you know, I sometimes see people wearing the kind of hat that I'm trying to think. I don't even know what they're called, but there's certain kinds of hats that you might see in Japan, and you can see people wearing them here, or the kind of umbrellas that they use, or the little fans. But even if somebody was walking down the street in a kimono, a woman walking down the street in a kimono, that is their culture, but it doesn't symbolize what a burqa or a hijab symbolize. It's not offensive to see a woman walking down the street in a kimono. And if a Muslim woman bothered to research a little bit about this country and how hard women have fought for their equality and their right to vote and their right to have a chance at the same careers and the same life paths that men have, women had to fight tooth and nail to get where we are today. Now we're starting to see things slide back. And I think I contribute that to religion, the rise of Christianity, the fact that it's intertwining with our political system and our government, and also the increase of Muslims coming to this country who are even more anti-women's rights than a lot of Christians. Not all Christians. There's a lot of Christians that are for women's rights, and I'm sure there's a lot of Muslims who are for women's rights. Generalizing is never right, but I'm talking about a large percentage of people with the mindset that think that women are less and women should cover up. They must cover up in order to be proper, but men don't have to. Double standards are wrong and unfair. I don't like the idea of having more people in this country that are anti-women's rights and anti the idea that a woman has the same capacities and the same rights to reach her potential as a man. I don't need more of that mentality in my country. So when I see Muslims come here and women dressing like this, like it's something to be proud of, oh, I'm hiding myself because a woman has to be completely covered up in order to be proper. It makes me angry. When I see women get on my bus and their eyes are down and they won't look up and they won't say hello. When I say hi, they won't even look at me. They won't say hello. They look at the ground like there's something, like they're ashamed. It makes me angry. When I see women walking behind men and the man is completely westernized and she's decked out head to foot in fabric, it makes me angry. When I see little girls dressed like their mothers, head to toe in fabric, swimming in the water or riding their bicycle, it makes me angry because we're pushing this mentality into we're passing it on rather than trying to let our children become Americans, become westernized, become part of the culture. I've seen in the past other immigrants, they come here and they don't really learn the language because it's harder for adults to learn a new language. They don't really learn the language. You know, they get a job and they live their lives. They raise their children and their children speak English and their children basically adopt the new culture, but the adults often don't. I've seen that before. But when I see the old desert, whatever, the Middle Eastern culture being passed on to the children, so those children never have a chance to become American westernized, to integrate to our society. I would like to hope down a few more generations we'll see finally the effect of Western culture take hold and people rejecting the Middle Eastern culture. But I'm kind of angry that adults are teaching their children this while they're in this country saying they want to be Americans. That upsets me. And if Muslims bother to look around and understand or try to understand what it is that they do that upsets people who are already here, that are already integrated into this society, and why people resent them and why they feel resentful, maybe that would be a good first step, understanding why, instead of criticizing and making up names and calling people names and trying to say they're bad people because they feel uncomfortable when they see a woman walking down the street head to toe in black fabric with black in front of her face. I'm sorry, I find that incredibly disturbing. I see that and I see there's a slave walking down the street in the middle of the United States of America. There is a slave. And there should not be slavery in this country. There should not be oppression of any kind in this country. I get angry. This is not what America's supposed to stand for. This is not what my grandmother marched for. This is not what my mother marched for. This is not what I marched for when I was a little girl at their side. Women's equality and women's rights and women being proud of who they are and not ashamed. There's nothing to be ashamed of. Women's bodies are not dirty. And if men have no control, they need to work on control. And they're not going to ever learn control as long as women continue to hide themselves and pander to men. Oh, we have to do all the heavy work, and the men don't have to, because it's women's faults that we were born with these bodies. Really? Honestly, I don't understand how women could ever embrace either Christianity or Islam or Mormonism or really any religion that puts women under men and demeans them in such obvious ways. Double standards is sexism. And it's wrong. We're never going to go anywhere as a society as long as we have double standards against any group of people. It's wrong, it's primitive, it's stupid. And I hate it more than anything else when I see it being taught to little children. Anyway, those are the things I wanted to say, kind of totally unrelated to each other, although Trump is horrible toward minorities in this country. I don't agree, by the way, with Trump's solution toward Muslims. I don't agree with kicking people out of the country. I don't agree with barring people from this country. But I do think that there needs to be more of an effort to identify people who have no intention. They're coming here to immigrate to this country and they have no intention of integrating. They come here saying they want to integrate, but they really don't. I don't know. I just feel like there needs to be some kind of follow-up efforts, and after a year or two follow-up follow-up efforts. How are you integrating into our society? You know, visit people in their homes. What work have you done to integrate into our society? That's the kind of thing I think needs to be done. Or just having people, I don't know how exactly, but try to identify people when they're coming in. Do you really want to be Americans? Are you ready to accept our culture and adapt to our culture? Because that's what we want in this country. We want people who want to become part of us and not be separate but living here. Not be some other country but living here. Okay, so I've ranted and raved and said everything. I don't agree with Trump, but at the same time I do think that we need to defend our way of life. If it's important to us, and it is important to me, and I think it's important to a lot of people, we do need to make it safe for our children. We need to make it so that our way of life can continue for our children. I would really hate to see a day when a little girl wakes up, whether she wants to or not, and she's in the Middle East.